Going on, y'all? It's LJ. It's cold, and it's coffee. Jack Frost is finally loose in New England, and I'm loving it. Now, time for something a little different with this video. Punk, punk rock, oi, street punk, 7-inch punk vinyl. Now, while I'm no scholar, and no longer even much of a fan of punk to be honest, with the hiatus of heavy metal in the 90s, and apart from some halfway decent grunge and alternative rock stuff, punk was the best thing going in the 90s for a metalhead, and the closest to metal that you could get until it rose from the ashes years later. Now, East Coast punk, for me, was made up of just about every known subgenre of punk, from oi to ska to aggressive snarling street punk to mainstream UK punk, but all with a very distinctive East Coast, like New Jersey, Massachusetts, New York kind of vibe. You know, it's like listening to an early Misfits or Sam Hain or even an Anthrax album. You can just identify that East Coast sound. Now, we're not going to spend a Herculean amount of time on any of these, but they're out, so why not share them? Now, the majority of these are Boston or New Jersey-based bands, and most all of these predate the mid-90s birth of Boston's most well-known punk band, the Dropkick Murphys. With the rebirth of metal, I've really not kept up with any of these bands, or punk in general, and why would I? I got to go back home to metal where it was safe, now that all that ridiculous new metal and garbage is flushed out, and metal is alive and well again. And so, on the back of a rare tangent, spinning some punk in the LJ Dungeon, the intention of this video is just to share a couple dozen what I would call obscure singles, some needle drops, and throw back to an era where a 7-inch single didn't take 5 months to get a couple hundred copies pressed like it does now. Covers were hand-drawn by friends, reproduced on copying machines, folded in half and wrapped around the record. And the resurgence of interest in vinyl in general was nowhere in sight. People still hated records. We want CD!
We want CD!
Seen or heard of any of these bands? Played in one of these bands? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. That's what it's all about. Oi! Now, first up is a band from New Jersey called Squeaky. And the first thing that I gotta know, like I mentioned a minute ago, a lot of these were Xerox on copying machines. So what do I mean by that? So I mean, if you take Squeaky's Anti-Establishment EP, and this is a 5-song EP on Headache Records, what you would get, unlike a normal 7-inch single, is you have a fold-out cover. And it's not gatefold quality, this is kind of just cardstock from a copying machine. And then inside, you have the vinyl. Now, unlike traditional US vinyl, these were all pressed on smaller records with not with the center smaller ring punched out, but more like the UK or European style singles. And you just don't see that anymore, and you didn't see any of that with these singles, which always kind of blew my mind because they weren't printed in Europe. Most of them were printed right here in the US. But anyways, Squeaky, and this is Anti-Establishment. This is a band, again, that's from New Jersey, and they're real raw and brash in their sound, real in-your-face punk, we are just gonna mess your ass up kind of stuff. It's definitely not my favorite kind of stuff, but they did release quite a few singles and EPs. Again, with the hand-drawn covers, and check out a few of these different ones. Here's another one. This is called Pull the Trigger, and this is a split with The Outsiders. Squeaky, again, they were just kind of in-your-face, real brash kind of stuff. Now, what I thought was neat is that it's such a small scene, and it was such a small scene at the time, that you even had the bands inside saying, you know, go ahead and call Squeaky, or visit him at Spring Street in Newton, New Jersey, or call Doug or Joel, the singer or the bass player, and here's their phone numbers. And you just don't see stuff like that anymore. So it's kind of a scene all into itself. Why don't we go ahead and check out some Squeaky and some Outsiders.
Tonight, why don't you go? Why don't you go? Why don't you go tonight? Hippie homie, stomach pump, jingle up from day to day, up and down the black street. Why don't you just go away? Trending records everywhere.
Now from Massachusetts, here's Nobody's Heroes, and this is their EP, 3 songs, call it an EP, on Burnt Hairy Butt Records, and it's called Kill Tomorrow. Now, unlike Squeaky, Nobody's Heroes, they're a lot more melodic. The vocals are a lot more cleaner. This is something I dig a whole lot more. If you're familiar at all with the Sex Pistols, then you kind of get an idea what Nobody's Hero sounds like. And again, there's that label, Burnt Hairy Butt Records. How cool is that? And the cover is very much so the same style. So there's the front, and again, it says copy number 7 out of 500. I highly doubt they had more than 250 pressed, but whatever. And the same kind of thing inside with just that fold-out, heavy hardstock, but still, kind of a copy machine cover. This one's a little different in that you actually got a different color here, which is red instead of just using orange or white paper to get kind of different covers. So really a pretty cool snapshot in time and definitely a cool single and band worth checking out. Now here's another band, and I'm pretty sure they were from Mass also, but I can't really remember. And this is called Youthful Offenders, and this EP is called Independence Day. This one has a more professional, heavy cardstock cover, and this was printed by Vulture Rock. Youthful Offenders, they're more like Squeaky. I mean, they're more aggressive, they're more in your face, they're more raw. They're not hardcore. They have those, punk gang vocals with everybody shouting along. But these guys always reminded me more of like a Helmet, Henry Rollins band, kind of that style, kind of tapering towards industrial, but not quite, hardcore, but not quite, somewhere in there. Definitely much more rough, raw, visceral, and violent, though. So here's another 3-piece from New Jersey, and this is called The Cuffs. The name of this EP is Death by the Bottle. This is another release on Headache Records, another one of the fold-out insides, and again, a really nice cover on this one. And you got to go back to, again, bands like Squeaky and the Outsiders, and that's pretty much what Headache Records did at the time. Kind of the stuff that was maybe just a little more visceral. It's got more of that UK punk sound. Not quite as friendly as The Clash, but somewhere there, maybe just a step beyond. Here's another band from Massachusetts. This is a 4-piece, and this is the Showcase Showdown with their EP, Soothing Moments. So EP, again, 3 songs, so too much to be a single. But regardless, this is super melodic, a lot of ska tinge going on. And, some of the ska bands that come to mind, like Save Ferris, I don't know, or something like that. Punk ska, though, not commercial ska. So all that means is it's not, we're going to come get you and screw the government and get all this stuff and get out of my yard. It's not that. It's definitely a lot more friendly and accessible than that. And you can even tell just by the back, the crowd shouting. They're having a good time rather than having thin suspenders here or down around their legs with their Doc Martens laced up ready to pound you. It's a lot more friendly, a lot more melodic than that. And this is kind of where if I was going to listen to punk, or I am going to listen to punk, it's going to be something more along these lines. I've definitely found I just don't have the tolerance anymore for that real visceral, raw, aggressive stuff. It just doesn't sit in my ears anymore. Now this is another split. I'm not sure what year this one was, but it's probably right around 94, 95. And this is the Randoms, which are like snarling garage punk again. Just real loud, real raw. And the Bruisers. And the Bruisers are more bassline heavy. And if you know punk, you know exactly what I mean. There's just those kind of punk records that are just carried along by the bassline. And, that's what the Bruisers are all about. So really kind of a weird combination. This one doesn't have anything on the inside. But on the time it came on, I guess you'd call that clear vinyl, although it looks more lime green in this light. It was a really weird combination, though, because you'd have something as garagey as the Randoms mixed with something much more melodic and bassline driven as the Bruisers. So kind of an interesting listen. Side 1 was recorded live in New Hampshire, and the other side recorded out in California. Now here's more from the Randoms, and we'll go ahead and do a needle drop on this one, but it's another split. This one, again, it's kind of mind-blowing. So you have the Randoms with Cowtown Boot Boys, and again, it's more that visceral, raw kind of stuff. And then on the flip, you have Pressure Point. In Pressure Point, take a look at the back there on top there. Much more melodic than the picture would lead you to believe. Definitely a tinge of ska there. A lot easier to digest, put it that way. So there's a Pressure Point side. This one actually has a really cool label on it. Now here's another split, and this one is Blanks 77 and Anti-Heroes. And Anti-Heroes, truck stop toilet at the edge, kind of just cool, straightforward, kind of snarling, but not really visceral punk. And the other band, Blank 77, they both have a huge Sex Pistols kind of thing going on. Blank's 77, their track, I Don't Wanna Be, to such a degree that you could actually say it may be worthwhile to sue them for plagiarism with Anarchy in the UK. It just sounds that, you can just hear the song and it's just different lyrics, and then it'll kind of change at a chorus or a bar just to keep it different enough. Now for me, here's where the Anti-Heroes really nailed it. I freaking love this single. This is from 1992, and this is Election Day. And this is just way, way more melodic than what they did on that previous single that we just took a look at. And it's all Anti-Heroes, so I think it's 1, 2, 3 tracks. And first track, Election Day, I'm going to go ahead and drop the needle on it. This is just much more cleaner, much more melodic, straightforward. The government sucks, let's fight and just throw rubber dicks at everybody because they suck kind of punk. Super easy to digest and listen to, just absolutely fantastic stuff. Absolutely dug it then, absolutely dug it now. It's amazing when you circle back to some of this stuff. Here's a Massachusetts-based band. This is called the Affliction. Here is a very flimsy produced cover that you can tell, just like a fanzine, they kind of just typed stuff out. This is before printers, or maybe they used their Commodore 64, and they kind of printed it, cut it out, pasted it, and then ran it off. It's just got that kind of fanzine quality to the cover. And how can you not love that? It's just in beautiful shape after 20 years. But regardless, these guys, the Afflicted, man, this is just probably one of the most absolutely pissed off bands you will ever hear. To such a degree that I don't want to coin a new genre. I actually am no fan of subgenres. Subgenres piss me off. But I mean, if thrash punk is a genre and it's a viable subgenre, which I'm pretty sure it's not, then this is it. And it's just got deathy thrash metal elements going through it, kind of like a Sepultura. You know, if Sepultura was just a little bit punky, they would be the Afflicted. Oi, 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 oi! Here's another Boston band. This is the Bruisers. This is a really well-produced EP, 4-song EP. The picture on the back. Again, this coming out in the mid-90s, 1997, late 90s at this point. The Bruisers were a 5-piece, I guess, at the point this was recorded. I'm trying to remember if it was 4 or 5. This is just a wildly good EP. Well-produced, rockin' guitar lines, just great leads all the way through this. Super clean, catchy vocals, clean, catchy songs. This one is absolutely fantastic. Now here's another split with 2 bands, and the first one is Gringo, If I Were King. Just check out that cover. And this is just a phenomenal example of what I mentioned at the start of this video, with how you would just get your friend who's a really, really good artist to draw your cover for you. And the flip of this is Fall River Overdrive. Now Gringo is that in-your-face, that visceral kind of punk stuff that I just really can't get into anymore. And Fall River Overdrive, they're almost more industrial. They kind of walk that early Marilyn Manson, like Antichrist Superstar era Marilyn, which I also hate. Early 9 Inch Nails kind of. I just don't dig that stuff. So Fall River Overdrive is kind of like that, while Gringo is just more in your face. It kind of sucks, actually. Now here's another Gringo single, and this time it's called Crimes Are Us. Again, a really, really cool illustration for the cover. This time they're not split with Fall River Overdrive, they're split with a band called Fess. Another, I believe, Rhode Island-based band that's probably long since distinct like all of these. These guys probably all work in IT now. But, you know, it's just more Gringo, classic kind of in-your-face kind of stuff that I just really, really don't dig anymore. I'm not saying it's all that bad, but it's definitely not that great. You know, the coolest thing about Fess was their logo. I mean, anybody would recognize that, so anybody that's going to tip their hat coin like that to Kiss, alright, I'm on board with your single. Still don't like it though. Okay, so next up is a band called the Bristles, and just the cover artwork here is absolutely amazing. Now what that reminds me of, top to bottom, is early Sacred Right, like the Ignorance cover from the very first Sacred Right album, if you've ever seen the real original artwork, not the stuff that made it to the press. But this is their, early in their career, it's just really, really raw. I'll let you take a listen to this in a minute. But this is a band that kind of started that way. This would have been around 1993. They started real raw, and then towards the end, I guess they had a 4 or 5 year run, they definitely started to smooth out and kind of become a lot more melodic. So it's this early stuff that's still a little hard on the ears, but how this band evolved just blew me away. Check it out. Okay, so the Bristles went on then to release Generation Annihilation. This coming the next year in 1994. It's just more of the same stuff that you just heard. Really not a whole lot has changed since that very first EP. This one came on yellow vinyl. Then they went on to release in 1995. This is called We're In It Till the End. Definitely a band that I dig. Again, the earlier stuff, you know, in stark contrast, nothing on the inside on this one, to most bands where, you know, you say they start great and then kind of go downhill. The Bristles actually kind of started for me downhill and then got much better. But that's most likely just my ears and what I like. Now that last one that I just showed you is really cool. Came with a fold out about the band. The end came for the Bristles right around 1998 with this split. This is called Bottle Rockets, and they're split with US Bombs Breaks My Heart. And this is an absolutely fantastic split. This entire record is just amazing. The US Bombs were from California, probably unknown, probably long since broken up, along with the Bristles, but the Bristles just polished it off in huge style here. And the US Bombs, if you're familiar with bands like the Helicopters, you know, it wouldn't be unreasonable to spin a Helicopters record and then spin US Bombs. They would just play perfectly off one another. And the Bristles capped it with just a great track with some great guitar work, great vocals, nice and clean, miles away. I mean just miles away from they had started with Pogo Till You Puke way back in 1993. The few left in the pile here is the Vigilantes, and this is another Massachusetts-based 4-piece band. These guys, there's just nothing to say about them. They're just raw, rough, visceral, straight ahead, no frills, rough edge, distorted guitars, in your face, Massachusetts punk in the mid-90s. It just is what it is. No melody to be found here. If that's what you dig, move on. And here's another absolutely pissed off New Jersey punk band, and this is Blind Society. And this EP is called The Oi Scouts. It's pretty original there. This is kind of, you can just tell, as soon as you drop the needle on this, you look at the pictures on the cover, you know, this is the kind of band that if you showed up at their show without a mohawk, and I'm talking even the chicks at the show, or not ready to mock, just plan on, just get ready to eat through a straw for a month. That's how it's gonna be. Now here's another Massachusetts-based band, and you listen to this. This is The Trouble with the Crimes and Punishments EP, and this is on blue vinyl. And in this, you're gonna hear lots of loud, distorted guitars, lots of loud, rougher vocals. You have influences from, you can hear the Sex Pistols in here, you can hear the Exploited in here, you can hear Adolescents, and even a little GBH in here. And not my favorite stuff to listen to, but one that's still in the collection. This is a band called Tree, and this is Mung Tree, Dope, and Evicted. The cover is actually kind of a little disturbing. It's just one of those weird pictures, and so is the back. And this is moderately pissed off punk rock. Again, it's not a band that I dig a whole heck of a lot. It's really kind of just straightforward punk with loud guitars. And again, they kind of have that nasty, we want to rebel against everything and tear the building down kind of attitude. What I dig most about that one is, you know, again, going back to the indie releases, the little paper stuck in there. Someone screwed up inside of the record cover. Here's what should be on the left and what should be on the right. And what do? You print them out and cut them and jam them in the record, bring them to the show. Now the next Tree LP, actually a little bit better. The last up here is Tree with This Land. Now that's actually a pretty cool cover. It's on Man's Ruin Records, and it's actually kind of a bit of a schizophrenic little release. Look at the inside. So on side B, you have a track called Stands Alone, and that is Tree going full-on Biohazard. That late 90s. I don't dig it at all, but I know what it sounds like. It's that late 90s kind of industrial Biohazard kind of sound. Never been a favorite band of mine, but you know, any band that is going to take side A and do a ska punked out version of This Land Is Your Land is alright with me. Take a listen to that, dig it, leave a comment below if you have one. Later, y'all. More coffee. Freezing in here.